if you're aware of what you need to get out of the event, you can use it for yourself. To the most extreme example, watching the New Zealand pair use Henley Royal Regatta as a training event. They understood the assignment, and they weren't going light either. I was watching them pull like 46s, 47s. They knew they were better than the competition. They knew they could win it. They were training. I was in the Leander gym. I watched them do like an 18k erg in the morning. I didn't even know they were racing that day.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Last Stroke Counts. I think it's fair to say that the summer racing season's officially underway. We've seen some great display of racing at GB Trials last weekend, and Great Britain looks like it's going to have a very strong team for the upcoming World Championships. So, decided to do an episode on some top tips for racing.
Yeah, so just been keeping an eye on GB Trials. Been nice to see. It's all going well. Obviously, our old club Leander's done quite well, so that's nice. But yeah, just kind of got us thinking about what we're going to want to talk about next and different things. There's just so many options. But seeing as, like you said, racing is underway, wanting for Regatta next weekend, we just thought maybe go over some things that could help for people in their first race or their first big race, or might not all fit everyone, but maybe there's something that could help someone, and all those little gains can make the difference.
I think it's great to also go over some racing tips whilst we're in the mood for racing, because obviously we're preparing to go and visit quite a few regattas to see some people, make some contacts, and just talk more rowing things and kind of show what we've got to offer this season.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun. It's something we haven't done for quite a long time, and always talked about it, but this year we've got some stuff in place, so it's going to be exciting to be back in that environment. And hopefully once we're there, there's going to be a bunch of other things that we can get involved in, and we'll do some vlogs and stuff from the event maybe. But just a chance now to just sit down really and talk about a few things that are going to be helpful specifically for race day.
Amazing. So let's get into it. We've got 3 key points that we want to go over. Cool. So number 1, we've got preparation. Why is preparation important?
Oh, the old mantra is preparation prevents piss poor performance. So there's a bunch of different ways to say it, but basically the more you can plan ahead and the more options, the more things you're ready for, the less likely there is anything that's going to knock you off your game on the day.
Definitely. You don't plan to fail, you fail to plan. So it's good to be prepared. So
there's another one.
So what's the best way of getting yourself basically as prepared as you can on race day?
I mean, like that, the last Q&A, we spoke a little bit about sort of like pre-race rituals, and we sort of touched on not trying to change too much from your regular thing. But in terms of sort of whether you prepare the night before or the morning of, it's going to depend how early you're leaving, but it's just starting by making sure that you've got as many options that you need. Like British weather is very random. You can have hot sun and then rain, and even if you look at the weather before you go, you can't be sure. And ultimately, the old saying that probably I think started with my mum is like you can take layers off, but you can't put them back on. And if you don't have it with you, you can't use it. So number 1 is going to be obviously looking at your kit and just making sure that you've got options for everything. If you're racing multiple times in a day, you might want to take lots of spare kit. If there's a downpour in your heat, you don't want to be having to put wet kit back on. We always used to make sure that if we only had, say, 1 full race kit, for the whole crew, that we would save all that for the final. In British regattas, they're generally not too fussed about matching kit. You would want to be wearing your own club kit, but say, things like under base layers or short sleeves, long sleeves, splash jackets, things like that. If you can make sure you've got at least 2 sets of kit. So should you make the final or later on in the day, should there be bad weather, you've got something dry and clean and ready and matching to put on for that final race. So yeah,
I definitely really like the mantra that your mum has, which is you can always take layers off, but you can't put them back on. And also,
I don't think she invented it, but yeah.
Also, where are you going to take your layers from if you didn't bring them with you for the day? If you're at your regatta venue and you're missing a few bits and pieces, you're missing a long sleeve, you're missing leggings, and April can be very surprising. Like you said, British weather can be very surprising and unpredictable. It's not uncommon to have really cold weather in April morning and then it being like scorching heat later in the day. So just make sure you look out for all the options and give yourself the best chance of just like not having to worry about the simple things. Morgan talked about something which is called no talent required. You don't need any talent to bring the right kit with you on a day and just to make sure that it just doesn't get in the way. You want as little complications as you possibly can, and you just want to really focus on what you're going to do during your race and how you perform, and not, oh shit, I didn't bring my long sleeve, or my all-in-one is soaking wet, or like I don't have a spare pair of socks. Don't let that be you.
Yeah, simple stuff. Like for the most part, everyone knows how to load their kit bag. They go to training. This is probably not their first regatta. Even if it is, most people know what to stick in their kit bag. If you're stroke, you don't want to forget your stroke coach. Coxes are always going to have their Cox box and mic on them, things like that. But really, it's just a case of, rather than sort of leaving anything to chance, I would say it's a case of just sitting down beforehand and just running through. You can have a mental checklist, or you can make a little list on your phone. Like what I quite like to do, like maybe in a few days running up to an event, every time something pops into my head, like, oh, make sure I bring this, or make sure I bring a second pair of socks, or oh yeah, blister tape. And then I'll just like make a little checklist on my phone, and then the day before I leave, I'll just go through that and make sure I've put all that in my bag. But in general, it's just a case of like going through all the possible eventualities and then kind of making sure that you're covered. So like you want to just sit down and just run through like all the sometimes worst case scenarios. I mean, for some people, like that might get them a bit more nervous. For me personally, that actually helped calm my nerves down, because by the time I walk out the door with my kit bag, I'm like, cool, I know I've got everything. Because I thought, if there's a thunderstorm, am I going to have this kit? If the cafe's not got any food, am I going to have some food with me? If I can't find any clean drinking water, am I going to have drinking water with me? If the regatta goes on far longer than I thought it would, do I have enough food for the whole day? Maybe the heat gets delayed, or the final gets moved, or there's just got to think about all these different things that could possibly happen. Just run through them in your head and just make sure that you sort of tick the box for that. And like it's what we said before, the less things that can throw you off, the better. And we used to speak a lot about, just when I was rowing, but also as a coach, like when stuff does go wrong, almost like revel in it, enjoy it, because if the weather said sunny all day and you turn up at the regatta and it pisses it down like at midday for an hour, there's going to be a lot of people there that don't have spare kit, and there's going to be a lot of people in that final with you that have just put a damp all-in-one on and have just warmed up in a damp all-in-one. And I don't know if anyone's done that, but it's horrible. It feels horrible.
It
Specifically to put
yeah.
wet kit back on, it makes you feel really cold. It stops you from getting warmed up as quick. Things like that. So like, again, like going through those options and making sure that you've covered all bases, if something then does go wrong, can give you even more of like an edge or a mental edge.
Definitely, you can warrant yourself a peace of mind by just making sure you don't stress about not having brought something, or also maybe somebody from your crew hasn't exactly thought through exactly what they want to pack and what they want to bring. So you might have an extra flapjack bar for them, or like a protein bar or something like this, an extra drink, bit of water. But I just think if you can give yourself that edge that you spoke about over your opposition, if they're coming to the regatta expecting sun and it starts to rain, now they're stressing because they don't have the extra splash jacket, they don't have the gimp suit, if anyone's still rocking one of those. And you can relish in that opportunity where you've thought ahead much further than your opponents did, and therefore you're already 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. So what's going to happen when you turn up to the start line and they're all shivering cold, like you said, in wet kit, and you're just there like, yeah, cool, thought of that. Yep, what's next? Okay, someone's going to catch a crab. Maybe, maybe not. I'm prepared. Bring it on. I want to race.
Yeah, and I would say like it's, you mentioned the crew. Like definitely if you're in a crew, if you're in a 4, if you're in an 8, there's 9 of you. You've probably got a WhatsApp chat. you can divide some of those jobs up. So, someone could make all the sandwiches, bring a whole bunch of extra sandwiches. Someone could make sure they bring spare water. You can remind each other in that group, oh, I've got blister tape, you don't need to bring yours, or just remind someone, if there's one person that's got something, maybe you don't all have loads of kit, so you can ask other people, has anyone got a spare training all-in-one or a spare, maybe if your club kit is like dark blue and red or whatever, you only need like a spare dark blue, something to go underneath. Like we said, like in the UK, they're not too fussed with matching kit. That's not something that's going to be a problem. It's much more important to make sure that you're comfortable and like ready to race. But yeah, so you can divide jobs up, and also like in terms of being ready, like it doesn't mean spend money. Like you don't have to spend loads of money, and there are all sorts of companies will sit and tell you that their drink is better and their protein is better and this and that and all the rest of it. But the basics are the basics. At the end of the day, if you have some food, so if you don't want to go out to the shop the night before and buy all sorts of different stuff, some things you may, don't even know if you may or may not use, you can make a basic isotonic sports drink by using water, squash, a pinch of salt, and a pinch of sugar. You don't need to buy Lucozade. Like, there's probably plenty of recipes online. You could just make your own sandwiches, like basic things, yes, like a Rice Krispies cake or even like, a purpose-made protein bar or carbohydrate bar is very good, but they're generally like £3 sometimes for a bar, whereas like, just make some honey sandwiches, some honey and butter in a sandwich, and like, some bread and some sugar. That's basic kind of like refueling, bananas, fruit, things like that. So it's not necessarily even about spending money. It's just that thought process. Like, I like to just kind of almost catch myself out, almost like you said, sometimes make them sound a bit silly, but, oh, you've turned a regatta and you don't have your all-in-one, what are you going to do? Or you don't have this, or you forgot this. Like, okay, like just go through those options, break them down, fix them before you get to them. So like create the problems in your head, solve them, and therefore when they appear in real life, you've already dealt with it.
Plus, then if somebody else has got that kind of a problem in your crew, or maybe somebody that at the regatta, well, then you've already thought of a solution. So again, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah,
it's great.
You're going to be nervous, and nerves aren't a bad thing, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But just taking away all that other stuff, like you said, the no talent stuff, make sure that the things that don't require talent are done so that you can go out and show how much talent you have.
So what kind of foods would you avoid when coming to sort of prepare your lunch or your snack assortment for the race day?
I think it's something that you learn over time, like what sits well with you and not. It depends how nervous you get kind of in your stomach. I know some guys who feel a lot more sick or have a more of a sickening feeling when they get nervous. For me personally, I didn't tend to occasionally, but for the most part, it wasn't like a stomach feeling for me. So that's something you're going to get used to and you're going to learn over time. But obviously the big one is to not eat meat before, I think they say an hour, but generally we would say like 3 hours. Like, if you've got a race coming up in the next 3 hours, don't eat a bunch of chicken. That's going to sit in your stomach for a long time. Like, I'm not a nutritionist, but like these are sort of some of the basics. And in general, just have lots of options, some complex carbs and some basic carbs. So I don't know, like a pasta salad. Again, you can make a homemade pasta salad or just some sandwiches. You can have a more substantial food to eat if you've got big gaps or, for after you finish racing. But generally, I've found, like, especially if you're racing more than one time in a day, just small little things to eat, like cereal bars, just a couple spoonfuls of a pasta salad with some, I think it could be anything, mixed beans, whatever you like. Generally, don't try and change massively the food that you're eating, but give yourselves a lot of different options, because you'll find, like, when you start to get really tired, when you get with the nerves, towards the end of the day, you might have raced 2 or 3 or 4 times already. You want to make sure that you look in that food bag of yours and there's something that you feel like you want to eat. Like, if you're like, I know I need to eat something, I'm not super hungry, but I can feel that I'm getting tired. Oh, I don't really want to eat any more pasta. Like, make sure there's just a few options there, I would say. And probably the same for drinks. Have some plain water, have some squash, have something fizzy. Again, probably not close to race time, but there's a lot of people that mess with caffeine, and if you're going to have a kind of Red Bull or other drinks are available, yeah,
Time them well.
again, a little one for that would be the guys that usually drank an energy drink would have an empty plastic bottle, and then you would decant the energy drink into the plastic bottle, shake it up, fizz it out, shake it up, fizz it out, get all the fizz out, and then if that's something you want to drink like an hour before you race or 40 minutes, just before you boat for warm up, then it's flat. So, like I said, like all those little things, just having options and just make sure you're probably going to feel different throughout the day. You're probably going to eat different stuff. If you've got a long layover, you'd be more like having like an actual meal. If you know you've got a quick turnaround, just small little bits and pieces. The last thing you want to feel in the warm-up or at the start is full. But also empty for me sucks. So it's like that mid-ground. Like I don't want to be sit there and being like, oh no, like I'm really hungry now. That probably wouldn't have a massive impact on performance, but just mentally it's taken me away from what I'm supposed to do. But yeah, you definitely want to find that nice mid-ground. You don't want to be full. That's literally going to take away from your performance. Blood's going to be stuck in your stomach digesting, not going to have as much oxygen going out to your limbs, which you're obviously planning on using quite extensively. So yeah, I think like with anything, a bit of a balance, but yeah.
So yeah, I would just err on the side of caution, and in my personal experience, I would prefer to like underdo food than overdo it, because if you underdo it, cool, you can refuel more after your race.
You mean
especially
eat a bit less?
Eat a bit less.
Yeah, not necessarily bring less. When you say underdo.
Sorry, yeah. I meant eat a little bit less, because you can always refuel after a hard race. It's going to take 6 to 8 minutes, depending on conditions. But if you're in that middle K, you're going through the third 500, and you've got that thing that just sits on your stomach and is weighing you down. You can't be 100% in the boat at that point. You're not giving your all to the race, because you just can't focus fully on it. So definitely just see what works for you, and don't make too many drastic changes, because that is a recipe for disaster. Just stick to what you know. And for example, if you're the type of person that prefers to have like, I don't know, flapjack bars over some fresh fruit, bring those. But if you're like, well, I actually prefer to have an apple or like a bit of mango or watermelon, just do that. There's not a specific rule that outlines whether one thing is going to work better for you than the other than what you actually think is going to help. Because that's probably going to have the biggest effect. If you feel happy and comfortable having eaten or brought what you've prepared, that's probably going to give you the biggest boost over something that maybe what some guru somewhere is going to suggest.
Yeah, it's just about taking the worry out of it. And like the more specific you get about it, the more you might end up worrying about what you have or haven't got, or whether you've eaten it. I mean, a lot of people talk about this like half-hour window post-exercise. I think as far as I understand the science around it, is probably that's not as important as people thought. But if you're looking to sort of elevate your recovery to the next level, the thing that we were told to do and started doing as we get towards the top end of national or with international racing, was to have your recovery drinks and food like at the landing stage. So especially say if you're rowing, say something like Dorney Lake, and you might be 10-15 minutes walk, by the time you've got your shoes and your blaze and your boat and got it off and walked it over, if you've got tight gaps between races, then having a little plastic bag with a 500ml bottle of some protein shake or a mix or whatever you like drinking, and an energy bar or a banana, then we would take all that down. We would leave it down on the side with the shoes. You come off the water quickly, cops would go and grab those bags, distribute them. People can quickly have a drink of something and something to eat, and that way you don't have to carry that weight in the boat, because again, like you said, like kind of starting to take it into that next level. Another common practice before you start the race would be to empty your water bottles. So if you think everyone, if it's an 8 and everyone's got a half liter of water, that's 4 extra kilos. If you've got a liter, that's 8 extra kilos. It's small margins, but just little things. And again, a lot of that sometimes is just mentally about making you feel more prepared. But obviously, in a sport where you carry your own weight is important. So you might have emptied all your water bottles off. You're going to finish the race. You're going to be exhausted. You've got that thing right there. But again, I agree with you. It's not essential. I think the most essential thing is just keeping yourself sort of comfortable energized, fed, but not overdone, and just allow you to focus on racing.
And those are only the kind of things you're going to realize once you've got a few races under your bag, because that comes from preparation, like you said, from creating those problems in your head and then trying to solve them. So we spoke about how nutrition is very kind of time restricted during race day. So let's maybe touch a little bit about timing, which is our point number 2. You want to work backwards from your race time.
So it's really just a case of, like you said, race time is go time. So you want to work backwards from that point. So race time is 12 o'clock. So you want to be on the stake boat at least 5 minutes, probably 10 minutes before your start time. That can depend on the regatta. Listen to the umpires, make sure you've got enough time. So if you're going to have 5 or 10 minutes at the start, then how long do you want to have your warm-up? If you're going to have a 30-minute warm-up, then you're looking at boating 40 minutes before start line. Then just kind of keep working your way back from that. Okay, so if we're boating 40 minutes, then we know we want hands on the boat, 15 minutes, say 20 minutes before that, just for like that final chat. So that's like a 12 o'clock start time, so it's 11 o'clock hands on. So then you want to make sure between 10:30 and 11, you're doing your last trip to the toilet, you're doing your last kit. Maybe if you do a pre-jog, what you do in the build-up is going to be specific to you, to your event, how long it is, how many rounds there are, what your coach tells you to do. But just work backwards on that time limit and just make sure everyone in the crew knows it. If you've got a cox, and cox can help you do that, but don't rely on one person to be shouting at you to go. Massive tip for a regatta is a watch. If you don't normally wear a watch, go to Argos and buy a £9 Casio and just wear it on race day, because that's going to be really important, because those timings, you really want to set those timings down again, and that's something that's just going to help you stop you worrying. Oh God, what do we have to do now? Where do we have to be? Like no, I know. All right, what time is it? 10 o'clock. Okay, 2 hours before the race, I'm not going to eat anything else after that. So if I still feel hungry at 10, I might have something small to eat then. Then you're going through your processes. If it's the first time you've done it, it's still going to be nerve-wracking. After you've done it a few times, then that process starts to become a part of your race day. And whenever you're going back into a set plan that you've done before, that's, for me, what's always helped calm my nerves. So talking about winning a race, I don't do every day. But, getting changed and go for a wee and like going, doing my little stretch and things like that, like that process, as you do it more and more and more, starts to become more familiar, and that starts to help with the nerves. And you can just go back all the way to the start of the day. What time are we getting up? What time are we meeting? If you're loading boats that morning, what time are we doing that? It's just, it really helps keep things organized, obviously, like any endeavor, if you set your time up to it. But like you said, as a main point of race day, and if something hasn't done it before. Or also, like, sometimes, if you're at a small regatta, you're a smaller club, there could be 5, 6, 7, 10 crews and only 1 or 2 coaches. So you might not have that coach to rely on who's keeping an eye on you, and making sure you're aware of these things, and like taking ownership of where you need to be and what you need to do is important to make the best of the day and have the best performance. Like, the last thing you want to do is come off the water feeling like you've performed below your ability. And at the end of the day, I've won some of the biggest races in the country, and I've lost some of them. And win, lose, draw, I think the races you're happiest with are the ones when you left everything out there, and you don't sit there afterwards thinking, damn, I didn't have enough food, I knew that was going to be a problem, or why I didn't have enough food. Like, you want to be able to reach the end of the day, no matter how well you've done, just saying, we did everything, we practiced everything, and I did it right and I did my best. And then again, like, even if these events are smaller, they may be not as significant, it's the first race of the season, or if you're at an event, maybe you're a small crew and you're at a really large event like Marla Regatta, the aim isn't going to be to win it. You might need to set some other aims. Just coming away from that event thinking that you were able to put your best performance in.
Preparation is a big part of that, and I really love the tip that you gave about just getting yourself the cheapest £10 watch, because I guarantee you not everybody in your crew is going to have that. And again, talk about giving yourself an edge. That's going to help you sort of monitor the process of everything that's happening during that day. And also, the more you wear a watch, the more you're used to how long certain things take. So for example, if you've got a little bit of a muscular problem and you need to stretch it out before you go and boat, Well, you might need to account for the fact that when you do hands-on and you walk the boat to the landing stage, that there will be queues. At big events, you might only have like four to six landing stages. I think 2 might be used for landing, so say 4 are used for boating. There's going to be a queue. So, it's on you to be fully responsible for whether you get, enough time and just to stretch and to make sure that you're minimizing any sort of risk that you could carry into your crew. And just about that timing, well, it's so important to give yourself like a little bit of extra time, because stuff always goes wrong on race day and you don't want to be there with your hands cut down your pants. Like you want to make sure you've done that extra boat check, that you went over everything with a 10 and 13 mil, like, you've used that rigger jigger, every single rigger's tight, every single backstay's on cool, the foot plates are tight, the gates are tight. You're not having to, hold up the entire crew because you forgot your water bottle and you need to run to the trailer to go and grab it whilst you're ready to bow, stand on the landing stage. That's also probably the best way to annoy umpires and other people involved in the racing, is just to not have your head switched on. And I think something as little or as important as buying a watch can really help to start that process.
Yeah, watch is a big one. And if you're in a Cox and you don't have a watch, like, that's just not acceptable. Like, you need to get hold of one. And if you don't like wearing a watch, you can put it in your pocket. But I mean, I guess everyone has a phone on them a lot of the time. But generally, if you're at regattas and there's limited storage and stuff, quite often phones and valuables will be locked in a car. So just having a cheap watch, like I think it's like literally £9-10 you can buy a cheap Casio for. If you don't like wearing it in the boat, some people will put it around the oar handle. So in the boat, unless you're, the Cox or you're in charge, you don't necessarily have to wear it. But yeah, say you're in a quad and you're the one who's timekeeping, you can strap your watch to the blade handle, a little bit further down on the loom, so you can still see the time, but you don't have to wear it.
Yeah, definitely. I was already hearing some scullers typing in the comments like, no, you can't wear a watch when you're sculling because you're just going to be scraping your hands. Yeah, just put it down the loom, angle it, etc. And there might be a time where that watch doesn't make it out of the race. That has happened to me. I was racing a national championship spinal in Poland, and about 7:50 in, I just saw my heart rate watch just disappeared. But I just saw it go, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, that's
so long, old friend, because I've still gotta finish my race. So I'll think of you.
Yeah,
serve me well.
Don't take anything expensive in the boat, like, or be around the water at all. You don't need it. Even if a Cox might want to have their phone with them, say, it might be a case of getting in contact with the coach. But in general, I wouldn't take anything expensive in the boat, and that's the whole point for having like a watch that you use on race day. And yeah, I mean, that, like, one of the most disruptive things to you having a great race is going to be stressing about being late, having umpires shouting at you. So it's just one of the best ways to make sure that you're just relieving yourself of that issue, again, far ahead of the time that you might run into it.
Awesome. And then your crew can also benefit as a result of that. So our third point is crew bonding. So obviously on race day, it's really important that you're moving together with your crew the entire day. You do everything together and you have a common goal that you work towards. You don't really want to have any disagreements. So you want to essentially handle those things beforehand. So how can people do that?
Again, it's going to depend on a bunch of different things, but just thinking about this point, there's probably a lot of clubs where you have limited time in your crew, or if you're a small club, the crew that you're racing at the start of the season is likely to be the same towards the end of the season. And if you don't generally have a lot of time to spend socially with your crew, then a whole day at regatta together is a great opportunity to get to know everyone a bit better. I do think it's important to stick together generally as a crew, but I also think it's important to make sure that you speak to each other about how you deal with stress and nerves, because some people get really loud and chatty and they just want to chat and talk about something completely irrelevant, and other people will get really quiet and they'll just go in their own head a little bit, and that's fine. Like, it's fine to deal with nerves the way you want to deal with it. Obviously, if you're struggling and you want some help or you want to talk to a more experienced member of the crew, that's also important. But you don't want to be sat down in a tiny little corner of a tent somewhere with the chatty person going on off on one while you just want to sit there and be quiet, or you want to listen to your music. And you don't want to. If you're the kind of person that likes to go tired or listen to music, it's not that you don't want to listen to your crew or you're trying to be offensive. So I think it can come across that way. If someone's trying to talk, or that point that they're sat down for half an hour, they want to run through options and stuff, and you really don't. So I would say, as a crew at the start of the day, just sit down and go around everyone and just have them talk a little bit about how they think they're going to react to nerves and stress, and just make sure that you know that. Because then that also is not going to stress you. If half an hour before race time you think, Jesus, Tom's just got really tired, like quiet, like maybe there's something wrong with Tom. But if Tom said earlier in the day, no, I just get quiet, like that's me, like cool, okay. Again, it's like just stopping, just getting rid of anything that's going to make you nervous.
And same thing with the chatty person. So Tom might go a bit quiet, but Pete might get a little bit more chatty because, for example, the way that some people calm their nerves is through just sharing them and verbalizing them. So I think it's so crucial to know what makes other people in your crew tick. So then you can just work as a unit, and you can focus on doing the best that you can on the water, and not about what some people are doing or thinking or something that annoys you, etc., etc.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you're sticking to a plan as a crew, like you say, you're warming up together, you're maybe getting changed together, or making sure you go, you all walk to the changing rooms together and come back together. I just think that's like a really good way of running through that process. And then, like I say, first event of the season will probably be a lot less important to your whole crew than, say, Henley, if Henley is the aim for your season. But everything you do in that first run, you then have a base. If you've all done it and you've done it together, you all get to sit down afterwards and say, we liked this, we didn't like this, we thought we should move the warm-up. Then every time you race, you can adjust this a small amount. And by the time you get to Henley, then you can, then you're going to be absolutely as prepared as you can be. And the other thing is, even say if you were at regatta, maybe it's your first regatta, you're a novice event, or you're an event which you don't think you're going to win, or the competition is going to be tough. Like, adjust your goals as a crew, because if the aim for that season is not to win Wallingford Regatta, it's to do something at Henley, whether that be get through a round or qualify. It doesn't matter if you win or lose at Wallingford. You want to make sure you're using these events for you, and you're getting the most out of it that you need as a crew. So if you as a crew need to go and practice certain things in the warm up, or you need to go and practice a race plan, do that for you. Don't get too caught up in anything. And the other thing I'd say is the point to doing all of these things. You can do everything perfect and go out in your race and lose by 3 lengths and say that, well, we could have lost by 3 lengths, or we could have lost by 4 lengths, or 3 or 3.5. But you're practicing all these things so that when the day comes that you're in a race and it's side by side with 300 meters to go, all those little things that you've done and you've practiced will be the difference between winning and losing. Because at some point you'll have that close race, and making sure that you have done all these processes beforehand, that's when it gets really close, these things really are going to show and make the difference.
And having unified goal with your crew about what you want to get out of a regatta, or whether you want to practice something or whether you just genuinely want to win the event, it's going to help massively with the debrief. Because if, for example, half of the crew wanted to win and the other half just cared about getting to the A final, well, how are you going to debrief constructively? You're going to try and create different sort of opinions inside of the crew. So you want to make sure you're all looking at the same goal, and then when it comes to analyzing the performance, could we have done this better? Well, yes, but were we trying to do that? No. And then
it's going to depend.
You can mix and match.
If you've got a coach, your coach, I would have thought, will set out the aim for the regatta and what you want to do. But like we said, there's a lot of smaller clubs where they don't necessarily going to have their coach with them the whole time, or one coach is covering a bunch of different crews. And we talked about, when I coach rowers, or when I try and get information out, I want people to understand why we're talking about that. Because as a coach, you can just say, here is your aim, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do, here and here. But then if you actually allow people to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and you're getting them to build up a picture of it, then they're going to be more able to go off and do things. And as you progress through your own career, you might start at school and you're almost likely to have a coach with you all the time. You know, you're a junior, you're going to be looked after. There's going to be someone driving you to and from the regatta. But as you get older and as you progress, you're going to find yourself in situations where that's not the case. You know, if you go to Boston Trials, say, as an under 23, if you started trialing at university, you'll probably have to drive yourself there or share a car. You're going to have to get yourself ready. You're going to have to know when to boat. You know, there's not going to be that coach who's going to shout at you, so get on the water now, you know, you're late. So understanding like why you're doing these things, I think is important, like especially if you want to progress your career or you want to get further in rowing. But no, I would agree with you definitely. If you're going to sit down and have that chat at the start of the day, like we said about, you know, how I react to nerves, how I'm going to be throughout this day, then another great thing to talk about would be to make sure that you have a unified goal of what you're trying to achieve. And like I said, I think you can, if you're aware of what you need to get out of the event, you can use it for yourself. You can use, I mean, to the most extreme example, watching the New Zealand pair use Henley Royal Regatta as a training event. You know, they knew they were better. This is probably on the flip side than for most people, but they knew they were better than the competition. They knew they could win it. So they were training. I was in the Leander gym. I watched them do like an 18K erg in the morning before they raced that afternoon. I didn't even know they were racing that day, but yeah, they went out and raced. So that it's about understanding like how you can get the best benefit out of it and not necessarily being like totally down if you didn't win. I think you learn more from your losses anyway. But in general, making sure you have like a unified goal and you can just really get the most out of that event. And the more you get out of every event, the more you will progress, the better you will get. And like you say, as it gets to the sharp end of the racing season, the better the position you'll be in.
And it doesn't sometimes always even come down to the fact that, you know, your coach might not be available or anything. Regatta timings can be tough. If there are a few races that are like, you know, shifted closely, a coach might have to literally send you off, watch you race, and then cycle straight back up to the start line because they've got another race to follow. Cool. I'm really shocked about that New Zealand pair anecdote.
And they weren't going light either. I mean, I was watching them pull like 46s, 47s.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That is grim in general.
For them, you know, they understood the assignment. You know, they understood that each event was about maximizing their boat speed, and that's what they were doing.
Amazing. So I think that's just about it for our top tips. It's nice to talk about summer racing. You know, it's reminiscing about the old days of pressure and, you know, achievement and winning and losing. Like I miss all of this. And to me, racing was definitely like the most fun part of rowing. Like that's what you did all of that training for, is to sit at that start line and hear 2 minutes and hear all your crews being like called up and named, and then just wait for that buzzer to go and just to leave everything on the track. So if some of this can help some of you, then objective achieved, I think.
Yeah, I think the takeaway, like you said, is just allow yourself to perform the best you can. So everything that you're doing is working towards that. You can get really specific, and you can really, you know, you can do your research on the absolute best drink for recovery or for energy, but also, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. And, you know, things like nutrition, at the end of the day, nutrition is nutrition, and you can have it perfect or you can have it 90%, and unless you're racing at an Olympic final, that's probably going to be good enough. So as much as trying to do your best with everything, it's also just understanding that what's good for you or what you like is also good, and just making sure that you're not overstressing yourself from certain things. I think the other thing is like, yeah, exactly. Racing is fun. Like can be really nerve-wracking, especially if it's your first race or the first time you've been doing this event. It can be really, really nerve-wracking. And I think sometimes a lot of the enjoyment comes from afterwards, from feeling like you dealt with it. I dealt with that pressure. I did that race. Whether you won, lost, draw, you know, I performed well. I overcame my nerves. I got my race done. I had a good performance. So like that's a lot of the joy in it for me as well. But with things like nerves, you know, just make sure you remember everyone has them. It's totally normal. It helps you perform. If you were sat on the start line and you didn't give a crap about what you were doing or where you were, and you were thinking about having to have sausages for dinner, you're probably not going to have the best performance. So just remember, as nervous as you are, and sometimes you have that, or I had that voice in my head, being like, oh my God, this is awful. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. This has got absolutely, really like racked with nerves. Just remember, like, that's your body getting you ready for it. So, I think they're the takeaways. If anyone wants any other questions answered, like, feel free to drop them in the comments or message us on Instagram, and we'll make sure we do that.
We're going to be at a charity row event this weekend. We're taking part in a 24-hour row.
I'm not taking that much of a part in the row.
Yeah, we'll probably take like 5 minutes each. Part in the 24-hour row. One of the people that we support.
Yeah, basically the Never Too Late Atlantic Crossing team. So it's a charity. They're raising money for charity. If they're successful, it's going to be the oldest average age to have crossed the Atlantic in that boat. I think they're taking off in November of this year. So they're going to be in the West Gate this weekend doing a 24-hour charity row. We're gonna go up there for a little bit and see if we can do a couple of kilometers for them. Probably not too many more.
Nice. So if you're in there and you see us, definitely come and say hello. And yeah, definitely slide into the DMs with the technical rowing questions or even about racing. We'd love to answer them.
Yeah, it's difficult to go over everything. It's so varied. There's so, giving advice for how to race at a 1-day 6-lane regatta at Wallingford, comparing to how to have a best event at Shrewsbury Regatta when you're going to be doing 6 different events all at once. Is very different. So yeah, if there's anything that you want to talk about, we've done them all. I've done every version of racing, so I'm sure there's some stuff we could talk about.
Cool. Also, as for when it comes to summer racing, we're going to be coming to quite a few events this summer. We've got
so Wallingford next weekend. It's going to be our first, so we'll be out there. Big red row gear tent. Again, come say hi if you want. We're going to be launching a few products that we've got going new for this summer, which I'm quite excited about. And just generally talking about a few of the other things that we've got to come. So that's going to be really nice to be back in that racing environment without needing to race, which is sometimes a bit more enjoyable. But I also always feel like on the bank, like, when you see a close one go by, you're like, I'd like to be in that fight, And what else? Yeah, that's called
challenges.
Yeah, we're going to do some challenges. We're going to have a giveaway, just a bunch of different stuff really to show everyone what we are, what we're doing, and what we're about this summer. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. I won't say too much about what we're doing. You're going to have to come and have a look to see what's going on.
Definitely. So when's the next one after that?
So Wallingford, Nat Schools Regatta, Metropolitan Regatta, and Marlow Regatta are the 4 big ones that we're going to do. They're all at Dorney. We may or may not add a few more. It's going to depend on how much time we have in between, but we'll let you guys know when we're going to be places. If you want to come say hi.
Definitely. Yeah, we have to be kind of mindful of the time because we want to do podcasts, we want to do servicing, we want to do events, we want to basically just bring as much joy into rowing us as we can from our side. So as for bringing joy in, I think we've got a fantastic guest lined up for next week, Tom.
Yeah, so excited about this one. I mean, when we talked about the podcast, this was probably one of the first names that rose to the top. He's a really good friend of mine. We started rowing together in 2007. We've won Henley together. He's been a part of 3 of what would say the top 4 high performance centres in the UK. He's won Henley. He's won the boat race. He's rowed with people like James Cracknell in the boat race, which will be exciting to talk to him about that. Obviously, that guy's a bit of a legend, going a long way back in rowing.
Who are you talking about? Are you talking about the one and only, the People's Champ?
Some people know him as the People's Champion. He goes by many names. Others call him Dave Bell. So yeah, Dave Bell on Monday. Really excited to have him on, and we're going to get into a bunch of different things. We'll focus a little bit. We had some comments about people really want to see how they could take their amateur rowing to the next level, and I think Dave's a really good one for that because he's been in a lot of different processes. He also didn't start rowing too early, quite like Susie, so he's kind of from the start playing maybe playing catch up a little bit with people who started as a junior. But yeah, and there's just loads of exciting stuff, loads of great stories to talk about. He's well known in the rowing world, infamously for better or worse. But no, I think we're going to have a really good chat with him.
Amazing. I can't wait for this personally. So I think that's just about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope this brought you some value. Make sure to share this round, like and subscribe. That does really help to kind of make sure that other people can discover the same content and it can help them on their rowing journey too. But for now, easy there.
Cue the music.